Okay, so background fixed means that you can fix an image or something like that in a specific location, and no matter how much you scroll, it'll never change. It will always stay there. And the default value of scroll moves the image as the user scrolls the window. Text indent and font indent allow you to do some indentation of where you want a line to start, and as well as and then the font style property allows you to pick different text styles as well. Okay, so this next one, which is this shows you how you can set the width of different things as well. So we'll look at this one. Okay, so this is so this is not using it's using inline styles. But right here it says style. The width is 20%. Over the next one down, then it says the width is 80%, and then 20%. So then, if we look at this text here, we'll see that this one and this one are at 20%, and this one's at 80%. And these things will automatically resize when you resize the web, the box size. The other thing you'll notice is that you automatically get scroll bars when you need them for this one. Oops. There we go. And maximize it, it all goes back out again. So it automatically resizes. You have to be a little careful with making these things relative, or making width a percentage. The problem is this stuff can look really weird if you make it based on a percent. If you've got someone that's still got a 6.4, I think it's 640 by 480 resolution, which no one uses anymore, but you may have some people that have it, then it's going to look really weird. But even someone with a fairly low resolution of 800 by 600 which is I think the lowest you can go nowadays, it's going to look kind of small. I don't really like doing things as a percent. I actually find that pixels work best. I actually specify that pixels works best. Yeah, Michael, I would agree. I don't like percentages. Period. Actually, to be honest with you, I have found they almost never look well. The problem is with percentages is they look fine on your computer where you're designing them, but then you look at them on other browsers with different screen resolutions and they look horrible. I kind of prefer pixels myself, so I typically don't use percentages. So there are your examples, and then when you resize it, you get something different. You can change the dimensions of elements with the height and width if you want. Text align property as well. Center it or make it left or right justified. Overflow is what gives you the scroll bars. So if we looked at that one again, we would see that we had the scroll bars. Yeah. So here, overflow scroll. So that gave us scroll bars when we needed them automatically. Okay, so I'm going to look at block level and how that works. These are the elements that have a virtual box drawn around them, and you can actually visualize the box. You can use padding and colors and stuff like that to actually visualize the box if you want. But there is an invisible box around a lot of these, and you can again do things like padding on the right, the left, the bottom, the top, and you can also set margins as well, almost like a visual document. You could visualize it by changing the border. Normally they don't have a border, but you can set the width, the color, and the style. And some of the styles are pretty cool. They make the things look good. Hidden, normally it's hidden. Dotted, dash, solid, double, groove, ridge, inset and outset, which is kind of cool. So there's your padding, your border, and your margin. We'll look at a couple of examples of it in a moment. And again, it controls it using the properties border width, border color, and border style. Your different possibilities are all different types of thickness, medium, thin, solid, and we can see we're creating a bunch of these here, possibilities that you can have, different classes, outset and inset, and how they all work. So we're going to create several of these divs using the different classes, and then we'll see what that looks like. So this is what you get when you do that. So you see the actual box around it. So normally when we leave it alone, you don't see these boxes because the box is hidden. And this is basically anything would have that, including a p tag, a div. We're using divs here, but a p tag and any of the h tags would have it. Right, so you can see the inset. See the where is it? It doesn't. You don't really see it here too much on the inset. Let's see. You don't really see much. I don't know if I'm got something wrong here, but can't really see that visual effect. Not sure why. Floating allows you to float things around, so something would stay in a fixed place and things would float around it. This is going to be header, paragraphs, text align justify, which means it'll be evenly across. Yes, by default borders are hidden. Floated is background color, size, and margin left, right. Float to the right, and text align to the right. Width is 50%. And then we have some text here. So if it uses floated, which this H1 tag does, called corporate training and authoring, and both H1s use it. So what we get is that this box right here means that text is going to float around it. Oops, sorry about that. Normally this P tag would be on the next line, but by setting the telling it to float right and making it only 50%, that meant this P tag can now float around it, which is what's happening. And on the next line, the same thing is happening. The margin property sets the space between the outside of an element's border and all other content on the page. The padding property determines the distance between the content inside an element and the inside of the element's border. Margins for individual sides of an element can be specified by using properties margin top, margin right, which we kind of already talked about that. Same thing with the padding. Okay, media types. This allows you to specify different properties for different medias, like when you print something in Readers for the Blind. You get those links very often that say printer friendly. One of the things you want to do if someone wants to print a page and you're using all kinds of fancy colors and stuff like that, if you're using a background color other than white, that's going to kill your laser printer. I mean, it's going to go through so much ink that it's going to get expensive and very wasteful. So even though you might have, let's say strong blue or whatever it was as your background for your web page, the background you might want for printing, you might want it to just be white, so that doesn't happen. So you can create a print media, and also a Readers for the Blind are important as well, to make sure you do that. Some of them you have a designed for mobile internet devices. This is a new one, actually. Braille is for machines that can read or print web pages in Braille. Speech allows the programmer to give a speech synthesizing web browser more information about the content of the web page. Again, that would be helpful for people that are blind. Print is for when you're printing it. So we're going to look at a couple of different examples. A classic example, and then what happens when you try to print preview something. So all media, we have a background color steel blue. And that might look great when you're displaying it, but it would be a killer on your printer if you printed it. Then the next we say at media print, which means the background for printing will be white, which is typically something you'd want to do. Okay, so when we display the page, we can see the background is definitely not white. It's a teal blue color. But then when we go and print it, the background is now white. So that's definitely something you'd want to do for printing. So that's a lot of times when you see those links, it's like printer-friendly version, they may be doing something like that in there. And again, this just basically says that pages with dark background, you essentially don't want to print, because you're going to be killing all their ink, or your ink. Sans serif generally look better on screen, while serif fonts look better on paper, so that's another thing you may want to consider. If you're using sans serif on your screen, but then in the print media use serif fonts instead. Media queries allow you to format your content to specific output devices. right, which you'd want to do. And this would be particularly useful with mobile devices. Um, you can set widths and orientations, which definitely could be useful depending upon what type of output device it is. Drop-down menus. Okay. A hover pseudo class, which we looked at before, we're going to look at it again. This is a pretty cool one. It gives you the impact of drop-down menus. And we'll see how we can tie this into JavaScript later on. Do some cool stuff. And I've got that one right here. This is what a drop-down menu looks like. And I've actually got these tied to some things, so when I do that, it just gives a little pop-up that says new file. We'll see how all that works. Let's skip that. So here's the CSS for it. The body, we're going to look at div menu, which says div.menu. So the dot menu is the class, the normal properties for that that you're going to have. There's not much there. And then we set up some special scenarios. So div.menu :hover a. What that means is that for the user-defined class menu in a div element, when you're hovering over an A tag, the display should be blocked. Okay. Div.menu A, which means you're not hovering, it's everything else, the display should be none. So because of that, when I'm not displaying hovering over something, it is you don't see it. But as soon as I hover over it, now see how all those other things start to display? Div.menu hovering over the A reference. Background color equals, that changes the color. The normal color is white, right? So you can't see it. And now the color changes. So all these things were in white, so you couldn't see them. Alright, hold on a second. Sorry about that. So you see how when I hover over, the color changes to that light blue? That's that very last one. And then down here we see the couple of things. We have div style equals, and this puts a z index, class is menu. Alright? So it's a div, it gets a class of menu, so all these things can apply. And the normal color is white. The font weight is menu, class menu. Here are the references, the arefs to it. Belong to it. They are all currently not displayed. But then when we hover over it, it displays. And let's see. Now that's how we got all those properties to work. Without writing any code at all, we got that functionality. Is it automatically centered? No. Shouldn't be automatically centered. Text align. Center. Okay. Now I can show you something that I added, and this is JavaScript, so we're not going to get to it much right now. But when I click on one of these, you see I got a little pop-up. That was JavaScript. Later on, we're going to see how we can plug this stuff into JavaScript. And what's going on here? Later on, we'll see how we can throw that into JavaScript and do some stuff with it. So that, when you're writing